name is Hayden an Ojibwe Native American. This is the Battle of Greasy Grass. The day began hot and cloudless as sunlight began to flood the Little Bighorn Valley, or rather known to the Sioux and Cheyenne as Greasy Grass. A boy named Deeds, barely 10 years old, was kicking up clumps of buffalo grass, while waiting for his older brother Brownback to round up his grandfather's ponies and retrieve Deeds to drive him back to the village. Deeds ended up coming across a box, accidentally dropped so the lid could easily be pried off. Inside the box found bread. White man's bread. Then he heard horse hooves. He looked up expecting to see Brownback, but then realized the noise was coming from behind him. "He's got the box!" 3 soldiers were grinding at Deeds. They aimed and fired the carbines. Before he could run or cry, the boy was struck through the chest. The boy was dead. My name is Tahunka Iotake, or Sitting Bull. Deeds was my nephew, and this was the beginning of the Battle of Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's Last Stand, or the Battle of Greasy Grass. Now, let me start from the beginning. Lieutenant Colonel George Custer, or rather as we knew him, Longhair, started his career fighting for the Union in the Civil War. After the Civil War, Longhair was put in charge of the newly formed 7th U.S. Cavalry Regiment and was sent to Kansas in 1866 to combat the Plains Indians. In November 1868, his command ended up coming across and destroying the Black Kettle village on the Rashida River, the majority of which were elders, women, and children. Custer became regarded as America's #1 Indian fighter. In 1874, Longhair was sent to find positions for military foothold and gold in the Black Hills. This intrusion, however, would disregard the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. In 1876, Longhair was sent to Fort Abraham Lincoln. There he learned that General Alfred H. Terry had been put in charge of an upcoming Sioux campaign, from which Longhair had been specifically forbidden from accompanying. But due to General Terry's inexperience in Indian warfare, however, he wanted Longhair along. In pleading, Longhair was permitted to join the expedition and was to command his old regiment, the 7th Cavalry, which is now joined by about 30 Arauca Indians and 5 Crow-Indian scouts. A 3-pronged attack was established. In June, the command started to move out. June 1876. My people camped in the Little Bighorn Valley. The village extended nearly 4 miles north to south with 7 great camp circles, over a half-mile each in diameter. There were many great leaders in the Little Bighorn Valley village, which would end up being the largest Indian encampment ever seen on the North American continent, and upward of 12,000 people, a third of which were fighting men. In the village, we were following our ancient traditions, following the buffalo herds west. Since the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, though, we were marked enemies of the U.S. and were to be hunted. Early summer was the time of the annual Sundance. Sioux and Cheyenne would gather to give penance to Wonkatonka, the great mystery who had always guided the Indian. After the ceremony, I received a vision. The Indian would receive a great victory over the white man. June 17, 1876. In searching for a great Indian camp, General Crook came into contact with and was driven back south by Sioux warriors on the Crazy Horse. This was a great victory for my people, but I sensed something greater was to come. After the battle, Arauca scouts picked up a trail leading from Rosebud to the Little Bighorn Valley. Longhair was told to take his command and follow it. Then he positioned himself so the village would be between him and Gibson's forces who would simultaneously march upstream. The plan was to attack on Monday, June 26th. On June 22nd, Longhair set out. On June 24th, I prayed. Wonkatonka, hear me and pity me. I want to live. Guide them against all misfortune and danger. I beg you, take pity on us. I returned to the village certain that we'd have another great victory over the white man. June 25th, 1876. Worrying about a possible retreat where they'd already been spotted once Deeds had found the munitions box, Longhair had marched his command overnight to go close enough to position an attack. A bugle sounded the officer's call. Longhair called out to one of the Crow scouts to lead the way, and within minutes the valley of Little Bighorn lay before them. After about a mile or so, he stopped his advance. He divided the 7th Cavalry into 3 main regiments. He sent Captain Frederick W. Benton and 3 companies off southwest to head off any attempt of escape by the Sioux up the Little Bighorn Valley. He sent Major Marcus A. Reno and another 3 companies off across the head of a small creek known as Upper Ash Creek. He left 1 company behind to serve as a pack train. The final 5 companies remained under Longhair's personal command. His manner displayed no lack of confidence. It would be 7 minutes past noon when Longhair and Reno's forces set out, staying within shouting distance of each other and following parallel courses across Upper Ash Creek. It would be shortly after 2:30 p.m. when Reno would pass Little Bighorn, with long hair a full 3/4 of a mile behind Reno as he reforms his battalion. In about 10 minutes, Reno set up his attack formation. Indian scouts in one company formed the left front. 2 companies followed behind in columns before. 1 company followed in reserve. The attack force was altogether 133 men, 21 being scouts. It was around that brown bag burst into my council lodge bringing word of Dee's murder. The village turned into an uproar. Warriors dashed for their ponies. Women and children rushed to the north end of the village. One bull reached our family lodge just before me. I exchanged his muzzleloader for a stone-headed warrior club and hung my rawhide shield over his shoulder. It wasn't just for protection, but a badge of chief's authority. I told him, "You will take my place. Go out and meet with the soldiers. Parley with them if you can. If they're willing, tell them I'll talk peace with them." One bull looked at me doubtfully as firing sounded and a bullet struck one of the teepee poles. "What if the white soldiers refuse to talk peace, Uncle?" "Then go right in. Don't be afraid. Go ahead." Young warriors surrounded one bull as he held my shield high. He led our warriors over the hill to meet the soldiers, holding his hand high in a sign of peace, but the soldiers would open fire. My nephew quickly led our warriors to a countercharge. To his right, Chief Lackman led a larger sum of warriors to protect part of the pony herd threatened by the Arapahoes. I rode through the camp shouting, "Brave up! We have everything to fight for. If we're defeated, we'll have nothing left to live for. It'll be a hard time, but fight like brave men. Brave up!" Crazy Horse exited his tent and shouted, "My friends, remain cold and fight until your last arrow and shell are released. Remember that if the soldiers reach our village, the women and children will be in great danger. Once you're mounted, follow me towards the river. Hayupa, come on!" Then the Sioux attacked. The Arapahoes forgot about taking the pony herd and fell back. It was then that Reno halted his forces and Chief Blackman turned his warriors to Reno's left flank. Holes started to open as frantic soldiers rode into the Sioux charge. Reno looked for Longhair's promised support but was met with none. He eventually ordered his soldiers to get off their horses in favor of being on foot. He tried to be on the defensive, but he's already outmatched more than 10-1. He eventually made his way across the river into some bluffs where he decided to try and make a stand. On the way, he lost about half his battalion. Eventually, I ordered for one bull to let remainder of Reno's command and run away. Let them live to tell the truth about this fight. Longhair now prepared to ascend upon the village. He turned to his trumpeter. "Orderly, I want you to take a message to Captain Benton. Ride as fast as you can and tell him to hurry. Tell him it's a big village. I want him to bring the ammunition packs with them." Trumpeter Martin would be the last white man to see Longhair and his command alive. Longhair ordered his charge down Medicine Tail Coulee towards the river. As he did, hundreds of mounted Native American warriors led to meet the new danger. The firing started. As they got closer, more soldiers started to drop. Then, at midstream, Custer, the renowned Indian killer, who had been seen as invincible, was struck through the left side of his chest, a mortal wound. His soldiers started a retreat. They eventually made their way back out of a ridge and some bluffs where they decided to try and make a stand. His battalion split into two, both trying and failing to secure defensive positions. Cheyenne warriors surrounded them. Sustaining the least casualties, Company C and F tried to continue on, trying to get over some hills and escape, but they were cut off by Crazy Horse and 1,000 Indian warriors. Within half an hour's initial charge, Longhair's command had been completely wiped out. Nearby, what remained of Reno and Benton's forces began to dig trenches. The next day, Native warriors ascended upon them. Both sides came to a standstill. It wasn't until I came that the fighting stopped. "Enough! These soldiers are trying to live, so let them live. Let them go. If we kill them all, a bigger army will march against us." The Battle of Greasy Grass was over. The Battle of Little Bighorn was revolutionary in the fact that it was the largest defeat it was ever witnessed at the hands of Native Americans. The following reaction would be the more harsh and expanded force used in the relocation of Native Americans to reservations. Americans started to have a more harsh viewpoint of Native Americans. Custer had become a martyr. Reforms would follow in response. Reservations became more strict. Eventually, things like Native American boarding schools became established for the assimilation of Native Americans. Recently, the Trump administration ordered for signage to be removed from the memorial, showing that this battle has an everlasting impact in history. This was the beginning of the end of the Indian Wars. This is when Native American customs started to come to an end. This was the Battle of Greasy Grass.